Watch more programs like this on cable and stream with PCN Select. Subscribe at PCNTV.com.
Steve Caton is a living history performer who portrays Major General Nathaniel Banks with the Confederation of Union Generals. Why did you become involved in living history?
I've always been interested in history. My mother loved it too. She would take us to Gettysburg every summer, and I just developed a love of history and going to historical locations. So I've always enjoyed it. So when I started dating my current wife, she was telling me about this organization that she belonged to, the Confederation of Union Generals, or COUG as we call it. And she said, you might be interested in this organization. So she brought me over to meet John Hart, who portrays General Winfield Scott. And I was so impressed with his enthusiasm of this organization and what they do. I said, sign me up. And I became a provisional member. And then I set out to take a look at who do I want to portray. And, all of us members, we always say our characters pick us. And that's exactly what happened. Banks just his whole background, everything he did, the successes, the failures, just jumped right out at me and said, this historical figure has a story to tell. I think I can do that.
Well, tell us a little bit about him. Give us just kind of a summary of who he was.
Well, it's interesting. He was what they call a political general. Political generals, because 1/3 of all the West Point generals went to the South, they were short. So Abraham Lincoln would take people he knew in political positions and give them a commission as an officer, as a general. So Banks, he was a congressman from Waltham, Massachusetts. He went on to be the first Speaker of the House of the newly formed Republican Party. And then he did 2 terms as Massachusetts governor. And then he ran against Abraham Lincoln in the primaries for the presidency in 1860. Of course, he lost to Abraham Lincoln, but Lincoln remembered him for his oratory skills and his political prowess. So he offered him a commission in May of 1861. He was the commander of the Department of Annapolis, then the Department of the Shenandoah, and then the last few years, he was the commander of the Department of the Gulf of Mexico.
So one of the great fears that people always say that human beings have is public speaking. Was there a transition for you as you were first starting to do performances? Did you ever get nervous?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, I'd been doing community theater since I was 10 years old. Now, I retired from the Air Force as a lieutenant colonel, which is why I gave myself a raise, promotion to major general. But no, I mean, in the Air Force, I had to do a lot of briefings. I talked to a lot of people. So getting up in front of people was never a problem for me. So between the community theater, portraying people, and speaking in front of large groups just came naturally to me.
How do you prepare for a role? How much rehearsal goes into a particular performance?
Well, we don't really call them performances per se because we don't have a memorized script. But basically, we become that person. We talk like that person. We talk as if we are that person. So whenever we tell a story, it's not always the exact same words. But what we do is once we choose a character, we do as much research as we can. I purchased several books, some of them online, found an awesome autobiography for Banks. And so I read those books at least once every year just to keep it fresh. And I always pick up things I may have missed the first time. So in terms of preparation, I can go out right now and talk to a group of people about Banks. But the more I learn about them, the more I don't know about them, which means the more I have to learn about them.
Well, Steve Caton is a living history performer who portrays Major General Nathaniel Banks with the Confederation of Union Generals. Thank you for speaking with me.
All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity.